Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Tamami, the chapter director of Tokyo, StartupGrind. And tonight, I would like to introduce my ex-business partner, Masami Sato. She's based in Singapore right now, and she's more than 10 years ago, she started. Is that a company or NPO, Masami?
It's a social enterprise as well as not-for-profit.
Masami's idea, it came out in one of the entrepreneur seminar, right? Okay, so this is Masami, and Masami, first of all, what you do at this moment?
Well, I'm Masami, and I'm the founder of a global giving initiative called B1G1. And you might think, what does this mean? B1G1. So B1G1 actually stands for buy one, give one. So if you just imagine this different world, so imagine, if every time you have a cup of coffee, a child receives access to life-saving clean water. Or every time you read a great book, a tree gets planted. Or every time you go to see a dentist, or your doctor, and somebody else receives healthcare. So if you imagine a world where everything we do makes a difference naturally, and that's the world of B1G1. So 13 years ago, B1G1, idea of B1G1 came to us, and we imagined, instead of businesses, small businesses not feeling like they had the power to make any difference in the big world with lots of problems, what if like every business could find a way to make a difference just by doing what they normally do? And that idea led to the endeavor of the past 13 years, figuring out how something like this, a simple idea, can become a reality. So today, B1G1 has initiative platforms with hundreds of carefully selected high-impact projects from around the world. And there are so many thousands of businesses that have worked with us. And these businesses have collectively created over 210 million giving impact to date. So that's kind of B1G1, buy one, give one in a nutshell.
So B1G1 come from buy one, give one. Huh?
The idea of buy one, give one.
Instead of buy one, give one, we will buy one and give one. Sami, so can you, at the beginning, show us how the B1G1 actually work?
Well, before we get into how, I think it's also good to talk about the why. We might question, why should we give? And so long time ago, when we first came up with an idea, actually the world was a little different from, compared to now. So there were no kind of, strong awareness about why businesses should give, especially small businesses, because, even now, concept of CSR is very well known. So people think like big businesses should be giving back because they are taking so much out of the environment or the supply chain, or so businesses should be doing good. So there is that expectation for big businesses to be doing something to give back. But for small businesses, it's not so common to think about something like giving, because businesses traditionally focused on maximizing profit and its own survival as well in a way. So giving is something that usually is put kind of to the end of the priority list. So today, I think there are more and more businesses thinking about the social responsibility or thinking about giving back or even like sustainable development goals. But 13 years ago, there weren't many businesses thinking about that. So the question was like, why? Why should we give? And so the idea was this, that actually when people start a business, the reason why anybody would spend time and effort starting and running a business is because each one of these special business people have a purpose or idea or desire to do something, solve a problem or help people or, add value to the community or the people they care about. So people go into business with this sense of aspiration and purpose. But what tends to happen in business is that we get, so many things to deal with. So actually, even though every business wants to do some form of good and experience the sense of meaning and purpose, something like, making a positive impact, making a difference, doing, something bigger than what our product and services, focus on. So actually, people have aspirations, but it's so hard to do something like effective giving. So that's why we thought, what if we could make it really easy for businesses to give? And even if it's small business, a startup, it doesn't matter. Every business with any business activities have actually ability to do something little, something small. And if we're not worried about doing something big, then we can do those small things every day and then accumulate our effort toward making a bigger impact. And of course, like the world has so many challenges, so alone we cannot solve all of the problems in the world. But if we just imagine the number of businesses out there and the variety of businesses, how come like somebody came up with this idea to start a company that produces toilet seat, or how come somebody is working on a web-based application while somebody else is much more focused on food and the service industry. So every business has aspiration and different ideas. So the idea is that if we can connect our everyday small act of business activities with so many different kind of issues and challenges and problems around the world, then actually solving the bigger issue becomes something that we can naturally do, rather than overthinking about charitable activities and campaigns and so on. So the why of B1G1 is really about believing that businesses with a real sense of purpose can together change our world. And so that's why B1G1 is not about necessarily just focused on raising lots of money for charity activities. But it's more about helping businesses embed effective giving in what they do. And make it part of a habit, because habit is the one that is actually the most transformative in the long run. So we wanted to help businesses to create the habit of doing good, habit of effective giving. And when they transform their habit and what they do every day, the dialogue they have in their business, relationship they have with their team and customers, and enhancing their giving spirit, we realized that has so much positive impact on the businesses as well. So that's kind of like why of giving and why of B1G1.
Really amazed with the idea of the B1G1, definitely, but also the system you've got and how easy we can actually start giving, so show it to us.
So this is B1G1 website. When, if you just go there, b1g1.com, then you will land here. And if you are interested in finding out a bit more about what we do, then you could go and then explore. So there are two videos where we explain the idea of B1G1. The first one is actually the concept and the purpose of why we do what we do. So I talked about that. So I would actually go to the how part, which is the B1G1 model. So here we have animated explainer that talks about actually the working of B1G1.
Our world has many challenges to overcome, from environmental destruction to extreme income inequalities. It can be overwhelming. But what if there was a new way for us to overcome these challenges? Just imagine a coffee shop giving access to life-saving water for every coffee they sell, or an accounting firm that gives a child in need access to education for every client they serve. B1G1 makes these things possible by connecting thousands of businesses with hundreds of high-impact projects around the world. Business giving comes with many important questions like, how do we know which charities are suitable and reliable? How can we make a real, tangible difference while running a business? When and how do we start giving? In the world of B1G1, we want to make giving simple, so your contribution can create a greater impact more than ever before. Here's how we do it. Every charity listed in B1G1, whom we call a worthy cause, is vetted by the independent B1G1 Giving Board, with strict criteria that reviews their financials, impact, and effectiveness. If they are approved, their projects are broken down into tangible micro-impacts that can cost as little as 1 cent. With just 1 cent, you could provide access to life-saving water to someone in need for a day. And with just a few dollars, you can give bookkeeping training to a woman starting a business or plant a tree to support reforestation. This means your giving, of any size, makes a tangible impact. When you join B1G1, you can link your day-to-day operations to projects close to your heart and embed giving at the core of your business. For example, every time someone buys your product, you can choose to plant 5 trees to support reforestation in Borneo. Or every time you send an email, you can give a day's access to clean drinking water to families in Cambodia. Or every time you meet a new client, you can provide 10 days access to e-learning education to children in India. The possibilities are endless. You can also inspire your clients and community by sharing with them the difference they've helped to create. For example, you can add B1G1 impact tracking widgets to your webpage, or share your giving stories meaningfully using our curated resources. Getting started with B1G1 is easy. First, you sign up to become a B1G1 member. Your membership supports our operations, and development support you in your business giving journey and keep this movement running and growing. As your membership is transparently separated from your giving, 100% of all the giving you do with your B1G1 account is passed on to the projects you support, and you always know where your money goes. And it takes only a minute to get started. Today, the B1G1 movement is represented by thousands of businesses who've come together to transform our world. Now, every business, no matter how small or big, can create positive impacts in the world, and your business can become one of them. So, join us. Together, we really can create a world that's full of giving.
So hopefully that kind of gave you the idea of the initiative demo. So there's a lot that goes on to find the right project and list them, break down the project into a small micro impact unit, and also helping businesses easily create the so-called giving stories. And that's the kind of like a core focus of B1G1. So we would B1G1 system would not say like, oh, how much would you like to donate? You want to give $1,000 or $100 or but it's really about what impact would you like to make? And then you get to choose from so many different projects. So I want to show you just a couple of things. So you are seeing my B1G1 account actually right now.
So the account already.
Yes, it's inside. Yeah. So anyway, like if you go to b1g1.com, without having an account, of course, you can explore all sort of things, what project B1G1 support, and how you can make a difference together with us and many other businesses around the world. But when you have a B1G1 account, then you can log in, and then so the first part that I want to show you is our project list. So let me just scroll through this, and you get to see like many different kind of project there. We even have right now this project is called Community Health Support Bundle. So with this project, what you can do is you could actually support multiple different community projects that helps people affected by the COVID situation right now. And so you could support a woman to sew a mask and then provide the reusable masks to members of a community or health workers, or you can supply protective gear to community health clinics. Or so we turned this into a bundle as well to make it easy to give, but you can give, of course, to individual project. So what you can do is, because there are so many, so it's hard to choose if you just keep scrolling. But if you had an idea, like, so for example, I want to make a difference by supporting people's health and well-being, then you could choose based on the, for example, category. You could choose, for example, based on even like sustainable development goals. I'm not sure like people on this call have heard about sustainable development goals or global goals. But now that more and more businesses are thinking about how to create a specific impact in different sustainable development goals, SDGs, and they might go like, I want to create an impact in gender equality area. And then you could do a search, or you could do a search based on the project cost, and you might have a specific budget for your giving. But whatever way that is, you could find different options. Then you can choose also to kind of provide different levels of impact with the same project as well. So for example, so this one. So with just 3 cents, you could give access to hygiene kit for a young adolescent girl for a day. But you can choose to support that activity for a month or for a year. And then, so it's, what you get to see with this is that whatever the amount that you are giving creates a tangible impact. And then also, for the organizations that we work with, charity organizations we work with, for them, like if, let's say a company donated, $12 or 3 cents, normally it's very difficult for them to administer those contributions. But because B1G1 amalgamate everybody's giving, and then remit to the fund with clear breakdown of how much funds raised for which specific activities. So for them, it's very easy to utilize the funds being collected by B1G1, and then create more of the impact that they are good at creating. So that's kind of B1G1 project list overview.
The video said 100% of money you gave. I mean, people give you, then go to the charity directly, 100%. That's very unusual, and I definitely want to know how you, the B1G1 company, survive.
That was the question we had from the beginning. Like we thought, how can we make the giving so impactful and transparent for people who are making a difference? Because if you are giving to support, certain project activities, then of course, first of all, you want to know the impact, but you want to know clearly like how the money is used and how much of the money is used for what. So in order for us to do that, making the 100% promise was actually very important, and because if we say 1 cent can give access to water, but then let's say we take percentage of that, or if a financial institution took credit card processing fee out of that 1 cent giving, then there's nothing left to go to give water. So we need to make sure if you give 1 cent, then 1 cent is sent to the project. So that in order for us to do this, in the video, it's also talked about the membership model. So basically, like if you imagine membership organizations like Rotary, or normally you would contribute annual fee or something to associate yourself with a business association or group or membership program. So B1G1 has that as well. But because we didn't want to make it hard for businesses, even tiny businesses, to give, we also made it very easy and simple too. So small business, and then depending on the revenue bracket, the small business will contribute just $1 a day toward the B1G1 membership. And then we collect that funds and fully use that funds for all the things like administration of your giving, or even like building the system, maintenance, server maintenance, all sort of things that we need to invest in to grow, maintain and grow this movement. That is coming from the membership collected from all sort of businesses. Another thing is because, you asked at the beginning of the call, is B1G1 a charity or business? And so the answer to this is, B1G1 is a social enterprise. And so we have two parts to this initiative. One part is a social enterprise business entity that's focused on adding value to our members and partners, those businesses that choose to give with us. So we create the tools and the resources to help them do so. But we also have product and services, like we sell, quite a few different books or merchandising, or we have an event that people will actually sign up for, or we host study tours. And then when it's not the pandemic, we take a group of people to visit the different projects. Or so we have these business activities, and 100% of the surplus, or revenue or profit coming from business activities will all continue to go back into the social enterprise to develop this initiative. And another part is the non-profit charity organization. So we have a US registered charity to manage all of the worthy cause program. So it means like how we select the right charity organizations, how we work with them and help them break down their project, and how we administer all of the funds to them. So that is run by a charity organization. And so we clearly separate our business development funds and then the contribution funds. So all of the money coming into the contribution fund, 100% of it is passed on to the charities that we work with. So
you started this business
2007.
I've met you like 2006. And so you started it already 2007. And how did you start it? Did you start it all by yourself, or did you had like a business partner or somebody? And who paid? Where the capital come from and all that?
More than 14 years ago, my business at that time was a food company. So I had a food business in Australia, and it was frozen packaged food distribution. So I started my business like 20 years ago, like my first business 20 years ago. And I went into food business because I was passionate about food. And I believed that every person had the right to enjoy healthy, wholesome food with the people they loved. And so that was kind of my entrepreneur aspiration. And I started my first business right after I became a mom. And, that timing was crucial for me because, in my youth, like I traveled around the world and I saw so many different problems in the world when I was like backpacking in many different countries. I traveled in countries like Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, but I also spent quite a lot of time in Central America, India, Nepal. So as I was traveling around the world and seeing the huge gap, the people who had more and people who had very little, hardly much. And kids living on the street or not being able to go to school because they weren't born in well-to-do family, or so those things didn't make sense to me. But when I became a mom for the first time and having my daughter in my arm, I realized that actually my daughter could be any one of them. So that took me to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And even though my daughter was a 3-month-old baby, I decided to start my business. And I went into food business. And then I kind of promised at that time that when this business becomes successful and we create profit, then we want to give all the money to help feed and educate street children who don't have parents like me. So that's how I went into business first. And then when I met you, Tamami, it was about 5-6 years into my initial business journey. So my company, starting with nothing and very small, initially in New Zealand, and we moved to Australia to expand. And at that time, before B1G1 idea came to me, my company was finally, starting to grow, and we had over about 150 retail outlets in Australia selling our frozen packaged food product. Oh. And it was organic, new concept, freshly made and packed, and so that business was starting to grow. But then at one point of time, suddenly this idea or thought dawned on me. I questioned, like, well, I work so hard, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, nonstop for like 5 years. But then at that point of time when my business was starting to do better, I realized that I still wasn't doing anything because I was too busy. And I was always, not having enough time to do anything else than running the business. And then also all the money we created was going back into business because I could always find the reason, like, oh, we need another freezer room or better packaging or more money into marketing. So the priority went into expanding business. And I realized that if I kept going that way, maybe like 10 or 20 years time, I would still be in the same place saying, same thing to myself, like I wasn't ready yet, not successful enough. So the question of buy one, give one came to me at that time because I realized instead of something big, trying to do something big in the future, what if we did something small every day? And that's when we decided to find a way to give from every product sale. So then I realized that in order for us to feed and educate a child, help educate a child for a day by giving a meal was about like 25 cents. And then I thought, wow, like, oh my gosh, that's just, about the same cost as a sticker to go on the product packaging or one of the ingredients. So at that time, we decided to make giving part of our product. And every time you have a meal, then you give a meal. And with that idea, everybody in and around the business became part of the giving story, that we are no longer just packing food. We are actually packing food for a customer while we are also providing a meal to a child who get to go to school because of that. And so then what happened was about like 7 months later after that, the initial realization, I realized that actually it wasn't just me. Like there were so many amazing, caring business people I met along my entrepreneurship journey. And then I thought that all those people actually wanted to do something, wanted to also support others too. So instead of continuing to run my own food company, I decided to sell that food business at that time. And then with that, I moved to Singapore 13 years ago to start the B1G1 as the Global Giving Initiative. And then, that was our seed funding, and we only had an idea at that time. So in the last 13 years, so many people came to us believing in the vision and mission, and they either chose to become a member or they volunteered their time, expertise, and knowledge and insight into making B1G1 what it is today. So we couldn't have done what we have done, just by ourselves.
You used the money when you sold your company at the time?
Yeah. So at that time, it's not that, so much capital. So like we had to kind of improvise quite a lot in the earlier days. So today, like I can say, oh, B1G1, joining B1G1 as a business is so easy. You can become a member for just $1 a day.
Right.
But then if we had that model like 13 years ago, we probably couldn't survive. Yeah, unless we had like a big venture capital investing in us or something. Yeah, so for us, the initial, initially there were kind of like people who came to us and then supported us the initial development as almost like a stakeholder, initial stakeholder and founding partners of the initiative too. But today, as a result of all the work we have done and our team has done, we can, make things like much more straightforward, simple and easy for businesses to do and take advantage of the platform as well to make an impact.
I see. And at this moment, how many companies are registered?
2,000, around 600-700 businesses on our platform. 210 million giving impact. And we don't count like money in terms of dollars, but we count impact. So these impacts, you can actually go and find out the impact breakdown of B1G1 movement too on our website. But these impacts include things like number of trees being planted or number of books being given to school library or meals being given or number of days of specific support like medical support or education support, or it's even include things like number of goats being given to families so that they can create a sustainable income or so.
You mentioned like you were traveling around the world before you start the business, maybe before you get married, was it?
Yes, that was before.
Right. And you were born in Japan, right?
Yes.
And you were traveling all by yourself.
Yeah, so when I was, I think around 20, and when I, finished studying at college in Japan, then at that time, even though I studied architecture, so it's not so related, yes. But after I graduated, one thing I wanted to do was to see the bigger world. Yeah, and so at least a few years of my life, I was able to travel around the world. And initially, when I left Japan, I didn't speak English, so it was initially a struggle, but important time, for me to really like understand and explore what was going on. I had so many questions, and during that time, I learned that actually, like around the world, initially I thought like the world outside was a little bit scary because people looked different, they spoke different language, had different culture. We couldn't understand each other. So I felt that. But then after traveling for some time, I started to realize that actually we are like all the same in a way that we cared about our family or friends, or people were kind wherever I went, and I could always ask for help when I needed. Experiencing the fact that we are actually the same. We are all human beings who cared, and we had all of us had different ideas, aspirations, and dreams, and so that's kind of like led to the founding of B1G1 too, because with the B1G1 initiative, it's really about the appreciation of all kind of different people and businesses, as well as the project, people who are identifying different challenges and issues in different communities and coming up with creative solutions. This is the way that we can solve this particular issue, and there are so many things happening in the world. So it's really about finding a way to connect the desire to do something great with the opportunities to get things done, and then bridging that gap.
Somebody influenced you go abroad, or since it's not common for us Japanese to to start traveling around all by yourself, go like you mentioned everywhere, right? What was the difference with the regular Japanese just newly grad woman and Masami Sato?
I'm an ordinary person. When I was a child, I was very, very quiet child and very shy. I would not talk about anything, about me, so I was always just a quiet child and always concerned about kind of being judged, or for the person who was like really so quiet and not able to speak, own mind. Like that probably would have been quite unusual for that child to grow up and then go out into a bigger world. And so to me, like what the biggest realization when I went outside of Japan at that time, out of just curiosity, was that when I lost all my words, because I couldn't speak in English. So when I lost my word, I finally learned to really connect with people, because I couldn't, try to say smart things or clever things anymore because I didn't know those words. So only thing I could do when I was traveling was to actually simply like connect or express just simple feelings with simple words, rather than trying to be smart or being afraid or being, worrying about how to say nice things to impress people. Or so when we took away those kind of like worries and being totally vulnerable, I realized that actually it was so much easier to connect with people.
I would like to know when this website is going to be in Japanese. And as an individual, can we use the system?
So for now, like individuals, let's say the team members of B1G1 businesses, because as a part of the kind of business membership model, we also give the businesses the ability to invite their team members into the platform, so that every team members giving will also go to different projects, and then we can track that. We can track also the connectivities across different businesses. So like, let's say one business joins us and then invite another company, and then another company invite many team members and they also give. Then we can count the number of impacts being created by the businesses and their influence. A few Japanese people joined us, and then I received the lovely Facebook Messenger messages from those Japanese people, and that was because I think there was an event in Japan, and then one of the speakers actively introduced the B1G1 to the group of Japanese people, or participants of that business.
Right.
And even though we only have an English website today, but those Japanese people joined us. So it's not like we cannot have a Japanese businesses joining us and working with us, but it's just that right now it's not translated in Japanese. So
Right.
I guess like multi-language development would happen is probably based on demand. Many more Japanese businesses join us and then said, okay, we want to see this in Japanese, so we can very easily introduce B1G1 to more and more Japanese business owners. Then that would be a direction we will probably take. But for the moment, or up to now, we've focused on English speaking market and businesses. But our members are coming from like probably more than 45 countries today. So it's just that we cannot create the system in like 30 or 40 languages at the moment.
Right.
But let's see.
You got out of Japan and you traveled and you went a lot of places and you started the business and doing what you love to do, and what would you say to a Japanese entrepreneur to be?
Oh. Well, like, because my entire business journey is in overseas countries, so I've never had a business in Japan.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I really admire and respect the people who are running businesses, their own businesses in Japan, because I'm sure like in Japan, things are actually a lot more complex in a way. Because I remember growing up in Japan and how like Japanese culture was much more subtle and complex, in the way we communicate with each other. So today I can speak Japanese, but I struggle to write Japanese, especially in the business format. Like, so I think like people who are running businesses in Japan and dealing with all sort of issues like accounting, compliance matters and all that, I really respect them and admire them, because I find like being overseas and running a business in English-speaking environment, it makes lots of things easier because, you know, we are based in Singapore, but basically we deal with businesses from so many different countries. And the type of business related issues or topics we discuss, like there is lot more commonality. And of course, typing English is quicker than typing Japanese. So I kind of like benefit from that little bit of simplicity in a sense. So yeah, so expanding into Japan, like B1G1 serving Japanese market, probably it's not just about translating the content into Japanese. We probably need to learn a lot more about the mindset of business owners or how they actually communicate and with each other or resonate with things or don't. Like we probably need to do a lot more learning in the cultural context as well. So yeah, so all those Japanese people, that, you know, I think for you to become an entrepreneur and start a business probably takes more courage or more guts, or, you know, because I think more Asian population, or, you know, even in Japan, I think it's more common to just work for a company rather than becoming a business owner and starting out something by yourself. So I respect you, Tamami, for doing what you do and admire you too.
That can be a straight encouragement for Japanese people to get out from Japan and start business outside of Japan now.
It's probably easier.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
There are lots of things that I use probably like, so for example, more and more Japanese like business philosophy, or maybe like cultural idealism or philosophy is becoming more and more well known in the global context. So people talk about things like ikigai. You know, you probably have seen the chart with, you know, how ikigai is translated in the business sense.
Right.
And how business people around the world are learning about the concept of ikigai, or it could be idea of kaizen, you know, the thinking about it continuously making small improvements in every part of the process and system that we work with. And so there are lots of like essence of ideas like that I learned as well, but also I would implement in our own business endeavor, and talk about those things quite a lot with the local team members here as well. When do we start thinking about giving? I think if we could all think that it's now and today, and then do small things that we could do. Like we don't need to worry about the size of giving. We can just do what we can do today, and then continue to do so that you can celebrate your wins every day, no matter how small.
So thank you very much, and have a great night. Thank you, Masami.
Great to see you.